Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the True Safety Podcast. I'm your co-host, Seth Silvers. I'm here with the one and only Apolonia Rockwell.
Hello.
Apolonia, what is something good that's happened at True Safety this week?
Oh my gosh, so much has happened this week. Holy smokes. Something great that has happened this week. Well, we're bringing on two new team members that have worked with us in the past, actually. And during COVID, we had to part ways with them. And so we're bringing them back. So I'm actually really excited about that.
Which is amazing because I remember those hard days when our team had to shrink a little bit because of some clients' teams had shrunk and their services had shrunk during COVID.
Yep.
And I remember everybody that we had to part ways with, they were like, you know what, if there's an opportunity to come back, like, please, like, I would love to come back. So it's cool to actually see that happen because I feel like it's very common for companies when they let people go to be like, yeah, we'll bring you back if we can.
Yeah, see you next time. And there's not a next time.
Yeah.
No, I'm super pumped about it. So
yeah. Well, that's awesome. So on today's podcast, we're going to talk about something that relates to a lot of safety professionals, which is the idea where oftentimes you feel under-resourced as a safety professional. You feel like it's hard to find the right training. It's hard to find access to the right tools. It's just hard to feel like you have everything you need to have an incredible safety program. But so many things have changed. Even in 2020 and 2021, like over the last 2 years, technology access has changed so much. So first off, what are some of the things that you've seen that are holding safety professionals back from creating the best safety program possible?
Yeah, I love this question. I think it's really simple. I think the biggest thing that holds most safety professionals back is not being the expert, actually, and being willing to not be the expert of the company, of the safety meeting or training that you're in. I've been in so many rooms where the safety professional feels the burden, maybe, and maybe that's where it's deep rooted. Where this attitude is deep rooted, is they have the burden of, I have to know everything. I have to be an expert. I'm a safety director for a trucking company, for a roustabout company, and they also do roofing work. And I feel like I have to be the expert in order to gain my employees' respect. So that whole thing, that whole dynamic, every safety professional can probably relate to. And to some extent, you do have to have experience in that industry. Say that you're a safety professional for a oil and gas company. I mean, you do have to know the basics. But I just remember starting out thinking, wow, I do feel that pressure of having to learn everything that my employees are doing in order for them to listen to me. But I've seen a lot of safety professionals take that too far, where they're not the expert. They're not the welding expert. They're not the truck driver. And so since they're not the expert, they are not willing to listen to feedback from the employees because they're so wrapped up in being the person that has the most knowledge in the room. So that's what gets safety professionals in trouble all the time. I see it all the time.
Yeah. And I think it can be frustrating, but can also be freeing for people to realize you don't have to be the expert on everything. And I think it's the difference. I'm sure that you've been in, sales calls or different things before where you ask a question and somebody doesn't have the answer and they don't BS their way to a fake answer. They usually say you know what, I don't know, but I'm committed to figuring it out for you. And I think that always comes across well. I'm not going to look at somebody poorly because they're not a know-it-all, especially when they're committed to finding out the answer. And so many people you have access to all the answers now.
You have access to all the answers. And yes, it's great to be an expert in whether it's the environmental or the OSHA side of things, where your OSHA regulations, you know everything there is to know about safety. And even you're not even going to get there. There's always evolving rules and regulations, but sure, being a safety expert in that realm. But I'm also talking about being the expert as far as what the company is doing and I love what you said. It's also freeing, taking that pressure off of yourself and allowing your employees, your team members to be the experts at their craft. So that way, instead of production and safety, fighting, butting heads, there's this freeing communication and partnership between the two, where your safety and you're trying to make them successful as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think safety professionals need to look at themselves as more of a guide.
Yes. A resource, a guide, a coach,
like you're guiding your audience, you're guiding your people, your workers to the answer or to the solution. And sometimes that's going to come directly from you. And sometimes you're going to guide them through someone else. And that's totally fine.
Absolutely.
So with how technology has changed, especially throughout 2020 and 2021, what's more accessible for safety professionals now than maybe it was 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, I would say that ironically, training materials, basic training templates, training materials, safety policies, templates, these are more accessible and they're better. I'm not saying that you're still going to find amazing safety training online as far as going to the OSHA website and what can I get here? But SafeLand for my safety professionals in the oil and gas industry, SafeLand, H2S, even the resources on the OSHA website are far more updated than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And you can at least use it as a starting point. I remember starting out as a safety professional almost 10 years ago thinking, where the heck do I start? I'm so lost. I don't know where to go. And it's true 10 years ago as it is today that OSHA.com, the freaking OSHA website, is going to be your best resource. That is incredible. It's an incredible up-to-date resource as far as staying plugged into the fatalities that are going on in your industry. Those are great statistics to showcase to your team. I shouldn't say showcase, but it's something that we need to be aware of. Hey, we're a roofing company. This is how many people died last year from fall incidents. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to know that way that way you have some substance when you're having a basic fall protection safety meeting and people are thinking, why in the world are we in this meeting? And it's like, this is why. This is how many families lost their dad, lost their mom last year. And so the OSHA website is still huge, and we can get into more resources, but that's still a great one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned SafeLand. SafeLand is, an amazing course for oil and gas companies that we've been offering it for a while in person, and people have been coming to our Greeley office. But then once the pandemic started, that couldn't happen. And so then, PEC realized, okay, we need to be doing this virtual because people still have to go to work. Yes. They still need the training. And now we're still doing it virtual and in person. Now we're doing it back in person, but also, every single week we have people from all over the country that are taking our SafeLand class. And that wasn't possible a couple of years ago. So I think even some simple things like that. I want to talk about a couple key areas where people just have access to more things. One of those is going to be the virtual safety training. Where previously a lot higher percentage of people were just doing in-person training. Now there's way more access to virtual safety training and safety training of a higher quality. Tell me a little bit about why it's important for safety professionals that maybe feel like they don't have unlimited resources to be taking advantage of virtual safety training.
Yeah, I think that virtual safety training we're seeing right now post-pandemic, a lot of companies are starting to have game plans of what if this happens again? I think that it would be dangerous for any company, any size, any industry to go back to our old way of thinking that a pandemic could never happen again. I mean, we have to accept that as a reality now. And so to move forward and to minimize risk for your company, it's important and it's smart to still have a game plan of what do we do if we can't group up again. And also, so many companies realized, all right, we have remote teams, and this is even post-pandemic, but we didn't really address this as these situations came up. But the pandemic really shined light on it. Was that it is unrealistic to think everyone is coming to your safety meetings. It's unrealistic, even if you have a home base, even if you have one office and you're a Colorado-based company, and people are coming into your office here or there. It's important to realize that, hey, it's safe. We have to reach people that miss our safety meetings, that we're expanding across even the state. And so it's important that those employees are still trained. And that is how virtual training comes in and plays to your advantage, because no one is missed. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's hugely important for people to be giving the resources so that everybody can have access to that. So the people that maybe aren't able to come to safety training meetings or, come to your, weekly stand-ups or whatever it might be, they still have access to it. And the good thing is, like, even on a practical level, like devices, like phones, like are getting more and more advanced. So it's just more possible for people to be taking advantage of that wherever they are, whether they're waiting in their truck for some inspection or something or whatever. Like, people can truly have access to training wherever they are. Mm-hmm. Another thing that people have more access to now is really some of the core classes that are needed, like OSHA 10 and OSHA 30. So let's take a few minutes to dive into both of those, because that's something that, now we're offering to people all over the country. And that's more accessible to where that priority, we always wanted to offer virtual OSHA 10, OSHA 30. But it was like in the last 2 years, that priority jumped to the top because we really, obviously with everything going on with the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So first off, like for OSHA 10, like, let's just take a minute to dive into like the big overview of what is OSHA 10 and why is it important that people can access that virtually and take those classes virtually.
Yeah, so OSHA 10 hour is provided for both general industry and construction industry. And so this is going to be your basic awareness, your basic safety awareness courses. And it's important that your employees go through this. One, it's probably going to be required for any of your clients. But number two, if someone is brand new, and our job market is crazy right now, and people that maybe were working at Walmart or Target or retail, whatever, they're now entering the construction workforce. So these basic awareness topics are big because this might be their first exposure to what exactly is OSHA. And that's the first thing that we talk about, is an overview of OSHA's mission. And then you go into what are some of the basics? What are some of the bare basics of rules I need to abide by while working on a job site, keeping myself safe and the people I work with safe. So that's OSHA 10.
Mm-hmm. Which is obviously very important. That's why it's one of the classes that OSHA says, hey, you need to take this. Mm-hmm. For a lot of industries, it's, kind of one of the required ones, but it's important for people to realize it's more accessible now. Like, you can take it where you're at. What about OSHA 30? OSHA 30 is now more accessible. It's easier for people to take it from wherever they are and whatever device they are. That's something that now we offer at True Safety Services. But what's the difference between OSHA 10 and OSHA 30, and why is it important for people to know that you can take OSHA 30 virtually?
Absolutely. So OSHA 10 hour, and then you have your OSHA 30 hour, both similar in you have general industry and your construction industry tailored classes. And so you have two options there. And the OSHA 30 hour is obviously going to be a more in-depth class and experience. And so your OSHA 10 hour is really for your frontline worker. So the person that's actually going to be executing the work. And the OSHA 30 is mainly for your supervisors and for your safety professionals. So it's strongly recommended that anybody in a leadership position, a supervisor position, if you have field site safety, any safety level, that they're taking these courses too, because the idea is that you have more knowledge as a supervisor on the job site, and you're able to set your expectations different, but you're going to have those tools so that way you can mentor the team too. I mean, it's great to take the 30 hour, but if you're holding all that information in for yourself, that defeats the purpose of the training, right? And so you want to share that knowledge with your team always with any training. But that would be your OSHA 30 hour.
Yeah, which is, again, hugely important just for safety professionals to realize, whether it's training for your team or training for yourself as the safety professional, like you have access to those trainings, like where you're at now. Maybe you're in a remote location. Maybe you're not near any like in-person trainers. It's more possible to get the training and the resources that you need. And I think this has been helpful just to help safety professionals realize, like, there's more access to resources. Like if you feel under-resourced, whether you don't have time, you don't have budget, maybe you don't have the training team that you need, right. You have the resources that you need. I'd love to kind of hear final thoughts from you on that as we bring this to a close.
Yeah, my biggest final thought is that anyone who's ever experienced an OSHA 10 or OSHA 30, they're probably listening thinking, oh my gosh, this class is out of control. It's so boring. It's so basic. And sometimes safety professionals feel like they have their hands tied because we do have to use OSHA's resources and training materials for this class. But I'll tell you this is, just because we have to use a certain PowerPoint provided to us doesn't mean that it stops there. You can always liven up your training by making every single module very specific to what your employees are doing. And that's going to be your best bet if you're the instructor teaching this class for your company, or if you're about to send your employees through a class and you're a safety professional and you're sending everyone in virtually to take an OSHA 10 or 30 hour class, have a follow-up. I mean, there's no rules that say that the OSHA 10 stops there once the certificate is received. How about do your own quiz? And maybe it's applicable to every subject that the employee went through. Let's say it's an OSHA 10, so it's really basic. Maybe have some job specific scenarios for each of those subjects and throw that 20 question survey or questionnaire at your employees just to make sure that they really got it. And that is crucial because we hear about it on the safety side of things is like, or the owners or the leadership management of the companies. Oh my gosh, we just sent everybody through OSHA 10. We're investing in our employees and everybody's still getting hurt. Nobody's listening. And this is where this maybe hatred comes. These thoughts towards safety is, well, I send my employees through training, but nothing's happening. We're still having the same incident rate. Think about it. Do something different. Everyone knows that OSHA 10 and 30 hour can be very basic. Lifen it up. Take responsibility. Do something different, and you'll get different results.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that everybody is hearing that, like, you have access to the resources, and yes, some of these trainings are the same PowerPoints, but like for us, that's why we make sure that the people that are training it have real field experience. They're not just coming out of university, not just coming out of a classroom to teach it, but they're coming off the field.
Exactly.
And so they have real experiences. And I think that adds a lot to it. So this has been wonderful, Apolonia. And to you listeners, I hope that this is encouraging and just helping you to understand you have more resources at your disposal than maybe you've thought. And every single day, there's more and more resources being made available for safety professionals, to where even if you have a tight safety budget or you're a one man or one woman team, you can get help. Like, you can get the support that you need to have an awesome safety program. So,
and I would love to hear feedback. If somebody is listening and they have really done something different with their OSHA 10 or 30-hour classes, if you're the instructor and you've done something, you've added to the class, or you've done something afterwards to really make sure that it's sticking, I would love to hear about it, and we could start a conversation, just because that's, I would love it. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, Apolonia, as always, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. And to everybody listening, we'll see you next time on the True Safety Podcast.
Yep. We'll see you soon. Thanks.